America's Guard of Honor, A Brief History by Robert M. Albertson, Jr. Symbols, Guardians of an Emblem. The origins of what would become the United States Army Institute of Heraldry date back to the fierce urgency of World War I, a conflict that forever altered military tradition. In the heat of global warfare, the American military recognized an urgent need for distinct visual symbols, identifiable patches and insignias to foster unity, instill pride, and enhance unit cohesion on chaotic battlefields. Though informal at first, the role of heraldry soon became critical, driving the military to formalize and centralize oversight of its visual traditions. By October 19, 1918, the first official shoulder-sleeve insignia, belonging to the 81st Infantry Division, nicknamed the Wildcat Division, set a benchmark for military symbolism. Quickly thereafter, the emblematic designs of the 82nd Infantry Division and others followed suit, proving the profound psychological power heraldry could wield. Yet, despite this clear value, heraldic oversight initially remained scattered among various Army departments. Through subsequent decades, from the interwar period into the crucible of World War II, the necessity of centralized expert control became undeniable. Emblems, badges, and insignia proliferated, each needing careful design, rigorous symbolic evaluation, and consistent standardization. Recognizing this critical need, the U.S. Army gradually increased its reliance on heraldic specialists, individuals versed not only in military tradition but also deeply knowledgeable in the intricate principles of heraldic symbolism. Finally, during President Dwight D. Eisenhower's administration on September 10, 1960, the United States Army Institute of Heraldry was formally established at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, bringing decades of scattered efforts under one authoritative umbrella. This pivotal move recognized heraldry's central role in reinforcing morale, unity, and identity throughout the Army's ranks. At its core, the Institute was a harmonious blend of precise civilian specialists and seasoned military professionals. These heraldic experts brought historical accuracy, symbolic richness, and aesthetic precision to every emblem under their care. Their duty extended far beyond simple design. Each insignia was subjected to rigorous scrutiny, ensuring it embodied and reinforced the Army's core values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. The Institute of Heraldry's meticulous standards led to some of the military's most revered symbols, including the Combat Infantryman Badge, CIB, Ranger and Special Forces tabs, and the Parachutist Badge. Each emblem transcended mere decoration. It represented a solemn commitment to capability, courage, and readiness. Among these distinguished symbols, the AA insignia of the 82nd Airborne Division stood prominently, revered globally, its legacy shaped by extraordinary bravery and decisive actions across continents. These principles, formalized in the 1990s but rooted deeply in the Army's traditions, are not abstract ideals. They are battle-hardened truths worn into the fabric of the all-American legacy. Loyalty is represented in the blue circle, its color echoing the canton of the American flag, a ring of commitment unbroken. Within the 82nd, loyalty isn't just pledged to the nation, it's fiercely upheld among brothers in arms. Men like Sergeant First Class Randall Shugart, though more famously tied to Delta Force, started his career in the 82nd Airborne. His loyalty to fellow soldiers was unquestionable, evident during the Battle of Mogadishu, his sacrifice which posthumously earned him the Medal of Honor. Duty lives in the Red Square, the field of fire where tasks are not optional, and responsibility weighs heavier than the rucksack. When paratroopers from the 82nd were the first to deploy during Operation Urgent Fury in Grenada in 1983, it wasn't a glamorous mission, but it was necessary, and they performed without hesitation. Respect runs through the threads holding the patch together. It's seen in the way NCOs mold the next generation, in how seasoned jump masters check rookie static lines without ridicule. The 82nd's culture demands it, rewards it, and enforces it. Selfless service is the soul of the White AA, a reminder that these men came from all over the United States, not for personal gain but for collective defense. Captain Humbert Rocky Versace, who served with the 3rd Brigade of the 82nd, his direct actions of protecting fellow service members led him to posthumously earning the Medal of Honor. Honor is the patch itself, a reputation worn and earned. The 82nd has never sought glory, but it has accrued it through relentless excellence. From Normandy to Kandahar, the patch has represented soldiers who hold themselves to a higher standard. Integrity is invisible, but ever present. It's in the small actions, paratroopers checking gear twice, speaking the truth to command, or refusing shortcuts during tough missions. Integrity is what ensures the patch continues to mean what it always has. Personal courage is the air under every parachute, the charge across every open field, the quiet walk into the unknown. It's what Corporal Alvin York embodied in the Argonne Forest in 1918, before the 82nd ever took to the skies, an act of staggering bravery that defined the division's legacy. When units sought to create or update their symbols, they brought detailed proposals, complete with sketches, historical context, and symbolic explanations, to the Institute. Every submission underwent thorough evaluation by panels of civilian heraldists and senior military officers. This meticulous, uncompromising process ensured the final designs were distinct, historically resonant, and visually powerful. The guardians at the Institute understood the profound power of heraldic symbols held to inspire troops and unite diverse soldiers beneath a common banner. The emblems created here communicated without words, echoing through barracks, resonating on battlefields, and elevating parade grounds. Soldiers wore these symbols proudly, recognizing them not merely as badges of affiliation, but as profound representations of sacrifice, service, and courage. Internationally, allies and adversaries alike quickly learned the significance behind each carefully crafted emblem. Indeed, the Institute's relentless dedication guaranteed that each patch, badge, and emblem carried forward both historical significance and the sacrifices made by generations of American soldiers. Far beyond simple identifiers, these symbols stood as enduring reminders of duty fulfilled, honor upheld, and courage proven time and again. The All-American patch, stitched with these values, has become more than a uniform detail. It is a contract, a code, a promise. When foreign troops see it, they recognize not just the might of the American military, but the moral compass that guides it. From Italian partisans in World War II to NATO allies in Kabul, the presence of the patch assures them these soldiers will fight hard, stand firm, and do the right thing. Nowhere was this reputation more clearly demonstrated than in Haiti, on the brink of conflict in September 1994. As the 82nd Airborne Division's DRF-1, Division Ready Force 1, was staged and airborne, with the 2nd Battalion, 325th Airborne Infantry Regiment en route to the island, diplomacy teetered on a knife's edge. General Raul Cedras, who had clung to power despite democratic elections, had resisted all calls to step aside. But the tide shifted not with the firing of a shot, but with the sight of paratroopers. Presented with a video feed showing aircraft being loaded with 82nd Airborne paratroopers, General Cedras was informed, while he still processed what he believed was live surveillance, that the footage was already hours old. The lead elements of the division were, by then, already in the air over the Atlantic. The message was unmistakable. The patch was coming. And with it, a history of swift, overwhelming precision from Panama to Grenada. But this wasn't merely psychological warfare. This was visual deterrence executed with the weight of generations. The loading of aircraft, the airborne departure, and the paratroopers' unmistakable silhouettes were not merely tactical maneuvers, they were theater. Precision choreography backed by historic resolve. It was a warning in motion. The 82nd didn't just posture, it committed. And the world had seen what followed when the 82nd committed. Within minutes, Cedras capitulated. The conflict that could have escalated into bloodshed resolved instead with strategic intimidation anchored by a patch. No shots fired, no boots hit the ground. Yet a nation changed course. Such is the power of the All-American insignia. Not merely a symbol, it is a force multiplier, a warning and a reassurance, depending on where one stands. To enemies, it is the sign of inevitable consequences. To the oppressed, it is the herald of hope. And to the soldiers who wear it, it is the solemn legacy of those who came before, and the living oath to do what is right when the world is watching. Emblem Eternal, Family Traditions. In the quiet glow of a setting sun, where the golden hues of tradition meet the steadfast lines of duty, the story of America's military service unfolds, a narrative painted with the delicate brushstrokes of commitment, sacrifice, and familial legacy. In a nation of roughly 340 million, the all-volunteer force draws from a razor-thin slice of the population. Less than 1% serve. That's approximately 3.4 million Americans in uniform per generation. But even that number doesn't tell the whole story. Not when you drill down into the data that really matters. Of those who raise their right hand and swear to defend the Constitution, nearly 79% report having a family member who served before them. That means roughly 2.7 million out of every 3.4 million service members didn't arrive by accident. They arrived by legacy. The most revealing figure is that 30% of those don't just come from military families. They follow in lockstep, choosing to serve in the same branch or unit as a parent. That's over 805,800 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines mirroring the exact path of their mother or father. Same shoulder patch, same creed, same ground. To put it plainly, in an Army brigade of 4,000, nearly 3,160 of them will have military bloodlines, and 960 will be walking in the literal boot prints of a parent. Units like the 1st Infantry Division, the 101st Airborne, and the 82nd Airborne aren't just names etched in history. They're living institutions, sustained by the pedigree which refuses to break. This lineage of service is not merely a statistic, but a living heritage, where the echoes of past commitments resonate in the choices of the present. In families where military service is a cherished tradition, these patches become heirlooms, passed down with stories of valor and resilience. For families like the Huffmans, the patch isn't just fabric, it's a bloodline. It represents more than affiliation. It's a declaration passed from generation to generation, worn into combat, folded into sea bags, and sewn into memory. Over 3 generations, the Huffman name has been etched into the operational rhythm of the 130th Airlift Wing of the West Virginia Air National Guard, not as a fluke, but as a living, breathing lineage of service. Their connection to the unit runs deeper than personnel records or deployment logs. It's in the language they speak at the dinner table, in the call signs muttered with pride, in the silent pause before the national anthem plays. When a Huffman dons that winged insignia, they aren't just wearing the current standard, they're walking in the bootsteps of their own blood. Same hangar, same flight line, same oath, passed like a torch from one hand to the next. The younger Huffmans didn't just follow a career path, they followed the same patch. That specific emblem, the 130th's Flying Hercules symbol, became the gravitational center of the family's service. It wasn't just about joining the military, it was about returning to something sacred, rejoining a tradition, reinforcing a blood pact etched not on paper, but on camouflage and flak vests. This isn't nostalgia, it's operational culture. When you grow up hearing mission briefings in real time, watching TDY departures from the other side of the fence line, and seeing your last name stitched over chest pockets lined up in a row of uniforms hanging at the front door, it's only a matter of time before the patch becomes more than emblematic. It becomes inevitable. And with that inevitability comes responsibility, to uphold the standard, to carry the name, not just the family name, but the units. Because in families like the Huffmans, the patch doesn't represent one soldier's journey. It represents a family's unbroken commitment to serve. Some legacies are written in ink. Others are carved into headstones, tucked inside field orders, and sewn into the uniforms of 4 generations. The Ugarte family didn't stumble into service, they built their lives around it. From the smoking ruins of World War II to the IED-riddled convoys of the 21st century, the Ugartes have worn the uniform like a second skin, each generation stepping forward as the last stepped back. It started with a rifleman in the European theater, an Ugarte grandfather who fought his way across France with the quiet resolve of a man who understood that history isn't something you witness, it's something you earn. He came home with ribbons, a limp, and a sense that his children would one day stand where he had, and they did. The second generation traded M1 Garands for M16s and ponchos for Kevlar, pushing through Vietnam's jungle rot and the cold calculus of Cold War-era operations. No ceremony, no spotlight, just orders, grit, and the unspoken family expectation. When the nation calls, you answer. By the third, the battlefield had changed, but the bloodline hadn't. Desert Storm, Iraq. The Ugartes were still in the fight. This time, one son served as an officer, the other as an enlisted man, both wearing the same name tape, both understanding that rank meant nothing in the face of tradition. In forward operating bases half a world away from where their grandfather had fought, they found themselves carrying his war stories like doctrine, part mythology, part marching orders. Now a fourth generation carries the weight. Digital camouflage, modular plate carriers, and biometric security checkpoints have replaced the sandbags and MREs of the past. But the oath, the discipline, the why remains the same. A family doesn't survive 4 generations in the army without sacrifice. Missed birthdays, empty chairs at holidays, folded flags. And yet the Ugartes never wavered. They don't wear the uniform because they have to. They wear it because that's what Ugartes do. Their legacy isn't a chapter in a history book. It's an active file, still growing, still marching forward. In an army where fewer and fewer families carry the torch, the Ugartes stand out not for their medals, but for their consistency. For proving again and again that duty doesn't dilute across generations, it deepens. And somewhere in the pages of the Army's personnel files, 4 generations of the same bloodline serve as a case study in American resilience. Not as a footnote, but as a standard. Remarkably, the Thomas family exemplifies this tradition. Spanning 5 continual generations, their service in various Army units underscores a deep familial commitment to military duty. From World War I to recent deployments, each generation of the Thomas family has participated in combat, illustrating the enduring nature of military commitment within families. The emblems worn by these service members are more than mere patches. They are symbols of enduring values and shared histories. Each insignia, meticulously crafted and rigorously tested, embodies the spirit of the unit it represents. The process of bringing these symbols to life is as precise as it is reverent, ensuring that every color, thread, and design element stands as a beacon of the unit's identity and the soldier's pledge. They are worn with pride by new generations, each stitching a connection to ancestors who once stood in the same ranks, faced similar challenges, and upheld the same values. As the sun sets on one day and rises on the next, the legacy of service continues, illuminated by the unwavering commitment of those who choose to serve. In the gentle light of remembrance and honor, the story of America's military families is painted, a masterpiece of dedication, unity, and enduring pride. In an age where satellites can read the serial number off a rifle bolt from low Earth orbit, and drone swarms can engage targets without a single boot on the ground, it might seem strange that a few square inches of cloth still matter. But they do, more than ever. As battlefield technology evolves, so too does the humble unit insignia, not in principle, but in construction. These aren't the patches of your grandfather's army. Today's shoulder sleeve insignia are the result of meticulous engineering, designed not just to represent, but to endure. High-tensile polyester threads now replace the cotton twill of the past, offering resilience against heat, friction, and the corrosive filth of modern deployment environments. Whether that's the red dust of Helmand, the Arctic cold of Alaska, or the monsoon-soaked jungles of the Pacific. But the real leap came with infrared compliance. After operational lessons learned the hard way in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Army adopted patches woven with threads that reflect IR light only under specific wavelengths, visible to friendly night vision optics, but ghosted to enemy sensors. This advancement gave infantry units the ability to maintain unit identity without becoming walking bullseyes in the dark. Identification without compromise. Symbolism with stealth. Every color still adheres to the Federal Standard 595, right down to the dye lot. Every inch is battlefield tested for abrasion resistance, sweat saturation, flame exposure, and UV fading. The average civilian might look at a patch and see a novelty, but the soldier knows better. That patch has already survived trials more brutal than some weapons platforms. And while the tech has changed, the meaning hasn't. Unit insignia are not just textile. They're time machines, a link between the past and present. A fresh recruit's patch is the same design worn by men who held the line at Bastogne, who jumped into Normandy at midnight, who slogged through Quai and patrolled Kandahar's burning roads. Each one connects the living to the fallen and the future to the legacy. It's not an accessory, it's a burden, a badge, a promise. For families with generations in uniform, patches become heirlooms, preserved not in glass cases, but in folded flags and old duffel bags, worn by sons where fathers once bled, stitched anew on shoulders that remember. They speak a language that transcends rank and MOS, one of honor, one of sacrifice, one of duty. And that's why no algorithm, no autonomous system, no drone strike will ever replace it. Because while war evolves, the spirit of the soldier and the symbol he wears over his heart remains unmoved. Decades after the guns fell silent, Major General James Gavin stood as both legend and witness. He didn't speak often of sentiment, but when he did, it cut deep. That patch, he said, eyes fixed on the AA, does not belong to any one soldier. It belongs to history itself, bearing witness to the courage, unity, and sacrifice of thousands. He wasn't exaggerating. Across the killing fields of Europe, from the smoke-choked ruins of St. Mère-Église to the frozen hellscape of Bastogne, the AA wasn't just recognized, it was revered. Civilians emerged from cellars and shattered storefronts not just to greet Americans, but to greet that patch. It came to symbolize liberation, resolve, and the ironclad promise that the All-Americans were near. In village after village, the insignia was burned into memory as the advance guard of freedom itself. The man who carried it, Gavin, the youngest division commander in World War II, became indistinguishable from the patch. His legend, earned in the chaos of airborne drops and street-to-street combat, reinforced what the insignia already stood for. But it wasn't just his legacy. It belonged to every man who fought beneath it. Every drop zone, every trench, every charge forward when retreat seemed easier. And that weight didn't vanish with time. It transferred from one generation to the next. Families like the Gavins and Taylors didn't just produce soldiers, they built bloodlines around service. From World War II's battlegrounds to the counterinsurgency operations of Iraq and Afghanistan, these families didn't watch history unfold. They participated, again and again, in the same uniforms, under the same flags, bearing the same insignia. The names change, the terrain changes, but the patches remain. And they aren't chosen by accident. Modern descendants don't stumble into these divisions. They seek them out. They request the same units their parents and grandparents once fought in, not out of nostalgia, but because that's where the legacy lives. In the 82nd Airborne, the 101st Airborne, and the 1st Infantry Division, the numbers bear it out. These storied commands record some of the highest rates of multi-generational enlistment in the entire U.S. military. The sons and daughters of warfighters return not just to serve, but to honor, to carry forward the mission, to earn the right to wear the same insignia that led men through Normandy, Saigon, Fallujah. Indeed, veterans like Command Sergeant Major Kenneth Rock Merritt, who jumped into Normandy in 1944 and subsequently served through Korea and Vietnam, perfectly encapsulate this sentiment. Merritt often highlighted the enduring power of the insignia, remarking proudly, "That right there, that tells them who we are before we say a word." Today's soldiers, deploying from C-17s into hostile terrain or engaging as peacekeepers in tense global regions, carry forward this honored tradition. The insignia they wear, meticulously crafted, historically significant, and universally respected, transcends mere fabric. Allies recognize it immediately, civilians remember it fondly, and adversaries respect it deeply. For these soldiers, especially those whose service echoes through generations, each patch represents an unspoken oath, binding their courage and resolve to the storied legacies of their ancestors.